The self alone exists. The self alone is real. This was taught by Sri Bhagavan. It is the significance of Advaita, non-dual. For this singular, undivided reality, the self admits of no alternative. The Maharshi also stated that the egoless state alone is real, the only real state that there is. Any other state is only so-called, for it is of an illusory nature. And an illusory state is really no state at all. For whom would another state be? It cannot be for the self, which always is just as it is. It cannot be for another, an ego state, for that presupposes an ego already existing to have that state. The egoless state is the natural state, the undifferentiated state, and the only actual state that there is. With the assumption of an ego that is individuality, there comes further the assumption of an existent world, an objective sphere of experience. The latter is always dependent upon the former. Though the two seem to rise and set together, the this aspect of one's experience depends utterly on the I. Once there is I, everything will be viewed in objective terms. The universe on the one hand, and the supreme on the other. That is, one will take a world which exists nowhere except in the conception, that is to say, imagination of the I, to be existing. And in the search to realize the Paramatman or Supreme Self, that will also be treated as if it were objective, something removed from one's own nature, which it is not the case at all. For reality to reveal itself to itself, for only the reality, Brahman, is capable of knowing itself. No other can do so, for no other actually exists. For the reality to reveal itself to itself, all that is required is a profound inquiry into the nature of the I. The one who beholds everything as objective, who is he? If the perceiver be sought, what will happen to the perception so-called? There is a verse in the Ashtakam to Arunachala composed by the Maharshi that is pertinent to this, that most clearly reveals what is being indicated now. It is the second verse of the 8 verses to Arunachala. And he says, "Who is the seer? When I sought within, I watched the disappearance of the seer and what survived him. No thought of 'I saw' arose. How then could the thought 'I did not see' arise? Who has the power to convey this in word when even thou," appearing as Dakshinamurti, "could do so in ancient days by silence only? Only to convey by silence thy transcendent state, thou standest as a hill shining from heaven to earth. Who is the seer? That is the inquiry. Whether we refer to such as the knower, the seer, the perceiver, the experiencer, is insignificant. What is the nature of the subject? When I sought within, what is within? Certainly not within the body. That is objective. What is within? Not within the context of the senses. All that is objective. What is within? Certainly not within the domain of the mind or the collection or movement of thought called the mind. For the entirety of the mind, every thought of whatever kind is the known. Consequently, it is objective. What is within is non-objective. When I sought within, I watched the disappearance of the seer and what survived him. The very individual, supposed individual, who claims the object, the world, what have you, is existing, that very one upon which all that is objective depends, that vanished. The one who supposedly stands apart from the self and says, I know the self or I do not know the self, that one vanished. What vanishes is unreal. The reality ever is, and neither appears nor disappears. I watched the disappearance of the seer and what survived him. That which is neither seer nor seen, nor can be called seeing, that which has no I or this about it at all, the unborn and the imperishable, that survived, the ever-existent. It is the reality of pure being or pure consciousness. No thought of I saw arose. How then could the thought I did not see arise? We may understand the lines in two ways. First, the notion of a perceiver who perceives objects, gross or subtle, sensations or conceptions. No thought, I saw, I know this, arose. So its corollary, I do not know this, still treating the this as if it were existent, did not arise either. In other words, relative ignorance and knowledge were abandoned in the knowledge of the real self. The second way of interpreting it follows the preceding lines, which is the inquiry that results in the disappearance of the seer and what survived him. No thought I saw arose, then how could the thought I did not see arise? That is, there was no conception of attainment, for there was no individual who reached the self or who did not reach the self. There is no one to say, I realize the self or I do not realize the self. That very I is non-existent. And the truth of its eternal non-existence is spoken of as realization, as if that were something that occurred. But occurred to whom? This is what the Maharshi is revealing. The thought I saw did not arise. The possibility I did not see obviously could not arise. What remains? Pure being. But this is that before which, as the Upanishad says, words and thoughts turn back, unable to grasp. So he says, who has the power to convey this in word when even thou, appearing as Dakshinamurti, could do so in ancient days by silence only? Silence is that state in which no I arises. It is the only real state that there is. Within, know the seer.